Thank you very much for joining me today on another episode of Talking Cloud. Now, this is where we talk about cloud, all things cloud, anything cloud, cloud computing. It's such an enormous word. It's seeped into every aspect of our computing lives. Now, I've told you many times, I am no expert, but I do know how to seek out the experts. And today, man, we got a great one. I'm so excited. I love to get the perspective from the C-level, and we got an outstanding certified CISO today that we're going to have a great conversation with. Now, John, I don't have enough time for this program to go through all of his experiences, but right out of the chute, I'm going to tell you, we got to thank this guy for his service, because he was a platoon sergeant, a crew chief, and that started his career, I think, as he moved into security. I'm reading through some of this. So he's a chief technology officer, an operating partner, adjunct professor, University of Virginia, vice president, security infrastructure and engineering for Harris Corporation, co-founder and executive vice president of Annovation. I said that wrong. Annovation. Maybe that's right. I'll ask him when we get there. There's many others in between where he is now and has been, it looks like, for at least 4 or more years as the Chief Information Security Officer at Laureate International Universities. I am so excited to be talking with John McClure today. John, thanks so very much for joining the program and having a chat with me today.
I'm excited about it, Grant. Thanks for the very generous introduction. I look forward to chatting with you.
Yeah, no, listen. So I know I did not do you justice. Maybe you can take a second, John, and add a little bit of Z-axis for the audience. Give them some perspective on you.
Sure. Thanks, Grant. I think you got the early days right. Served in the military for about 9 years, active military, and then after that,
thank you for your service. I'm serious. My son's a reservist, and I just have the utmost respect and admiration for anybody that's went out and stood up for our country. So thank you.
Thank you, Grant. And then after that, I was very fortunate and was able to support the U.S. government intelligence community for a little bit over 20 years. And you kind of saw some of the companies I was associated with during that time, whether it's Harris Corporation or Annovation. And then as you stated correctly, I've been with Laureate for a number of years now, and that's been an exciting journey for sure. It's a very unique company with quite a reach, whether it's global or whether it's in terms of scope and size of our employee base or student base. So, no, it's been a great journey and look forward to chatting with you about it today.
Yeah, this is great. It's interesting. I think, John, you're my first guest from the university space, the higher education space. And, I've sold into and interacted with higher education for a long, long time. And it seems it's a very interesting IT environment because at least years ago, we didn't want to control anything. I was told we don't want to block anything because this is the university and we want to enable free access and free learning. That's kind of diametrically opposed to a security strategy. How do you reconcile that in the university environment?
Yeah, no, you're right about that. There's just this huge spectrum, and it's pretty exciting. It's a very different environment than what I'd worked with in the past. And like you said, you've got this one side of it that's just hey, how do we enable new learning methods? How do we get outreach to more students, and how do we leverage technology to do that? So that's like let's put a lot of Google Assistants and Alexas in the classroom and see how that works out. And let's try these different modes of communication and access for students, especially remote students, even more so lately. And so you're right, we do got that one side. And then we have this other side of, at Laureate, we've got 50,000 employees. We've got student data that we're required to protect. And Laureate being global, we've got privacy laws in Brazil that we got to be aware of and understand how we protect that data, very similar to GDPR. We've got FERPA and the Department of Education requirements in the United States. And so it is diametrically opposed. We've got this very open attitude toward embracing learning, embracing creativity in students, and finding new ways to deliver education to students. But in no way does it take away from our requirements to protect that data. And some of these schools do a lot around health as well. And so there's PHI, right? Personal health information that also has to be. So it's a balancing act for sure. Keeps us on our toes. We've got whole labs at these universities that specifically work on ethical hacking and malware. And so it is a challenging environment for sure that I think really makes us think, there's not kind of one mode of thinking, right? Where we're going to protect everything and nothing gets out.
Right.
Nor is it the opposite. And so it's really been, I think, a process for us to really ensure that the culture that we're developing is embracing both sides of that. Not only that openness, but also, we take very seriously, obviously, the requirement to protect our students' data and our employees' data.
Right.
It's been a challenge for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned, John, a couple of things that I just want to pull on. One that I think is very interesting, and this is a dynamic that I think oftentimes we are a little myopic and we don't always appreciate. You have this, on one side, this educational environment that is really intended to foster new ways of thinking, problem solving and all the great things about education. But right parallel to it, tandem in virtually everything, is a business. I mean, a business that has to pay bills, a business that has to function and operate. Do you end up running parallel networks? How do you secure that diametrically opposed traffic?
Yeah, no, you hit it on the head. Yeah, we will work a lot with segmentation, a lot with really making sure we understand our assets and where they live and how they should be interacting with the rest of our network and our students or our vendors and partners out there in the world. So yeah, we've spent an inordinate amount of time and continue to refine that constantly, because there is this natural ebb and flow of whether it's new students or new employees. There's a lot of times in the education business where employees are a bit temporary as well. Maybe you'll have a teacher who comes in and teaches for a quarter and then is gone. And so it is very dynamic, and it does make sure that the segmentation is super critical. Again, there's parts of our network where we literally expect to see malware, and we should see malware, and that's healthy and expected. And there's other parts of the network where, even if we see, peer-to-peer sharing shouldn't be happening there. So we really need to understand our environment well. And interestingly enough, that's very different at each institution. Laureate's not one college or one university, right? Right now, we're a group of about 27 universities.
Oh, wow.
in Peru, in Brazil, in Mexico, in the United States. So all of them are set up a bit differently, right? Almost all of them. Only one of them is an online school. The rest are brick and mortar, show up for university as you'd think. Right. And so each of those are very different in how they've been constructed and how they've operated over the years, and it requires a very different approach for each of them.
I remember years ago, it almost was as if the customers, the university customers, they had this view of, well, nobody's going to break into our network. Nobody wants to hack us. There was this view that what did, an education environment have? And clearly that's changed quite a bit. Everyone has targeted traffic, targeted data that the bad guys want to exploit. But you mentioned only one of them is an online school. So given the experiences we've all been through over the course of the last 12, 15 months, was that school part of your network, your organization before this pandemic? And did you learn from them being a remote education institution?
Yeah, they've been with Laureate for quite some time now. That's Walden University here in the United States. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think as, when the pandemic really hit and everybody, we transitioned about 650,000 students to online learning.
Yeah, go home.
Right. Right. And we so taking almost 750,000 students to online learning in about 3 weeks and moving at the time, about 60 or 75,000 employees to remote work in such a quick period of time. There was a lot that we could learn from some of the work that Walden had done in the past. And each of the other universities surely had very small components of distant learning,
sure.
but not their entire staff and not their entire student base. So yeah, definitely some lessons learned there, especially around, I think, collaboration. How do we continue to engage students and for them to continue to receive a quality education? So there were some lessons that we could pull from some of that earlier experience for sure.
Yeah, so I imagine this is a Captain Obvious statement, but I suspect that the cloud played an important role in this accommodation during the pandemic for all of those nearly 750,000 students, no?
No, sure has. And it continues to be something we're leaning into. Some of our universities have made that journey a little bit faster to the cloud than others. We have some universities that are all in, all cloud now. So it definitely accelerated those systems where, again, we had in some cases some very smaller systems that were able to support a very small portion of distance learning being delivered to students, to where all of a sudden you went from 10,000 students to 100,000 students again in the course of a couple of weeks, and being able to scale and being able to really continue to deliver and communicate with those students and create more collaborative platforms that just hadn't been in place, where the cloud played a huge role in that. And we see the cloud continuing to play a huge role in that. We know that a lot of students are going to come back on campus, but we also believe that distance learning portion of the education delivery that's happening now will be larger than it ever had been for us. So the cloud will be something we continue to lean into, not only for education delivery, but again, collaboration platforms, student information systems, all of that kind of infrastructure that we need to continue to support the students.
Yeah. So I'm going to take this a slightly different way, because you are from the higher education environment, John, and I just want to get your thoughts, comments, maybe find out if maybe you and Laureate are doing anything, because the one thing that I have heard it's been the last several years is we don't have enough technical people. We don't have enough technical resources to enable us to move at the speed of cloud, to secure, go on and on. It's constantly talking about we don't have enough people. Are you seeing an increase in that curriculum, or is that an area of focus for you or any of your institutions? What's your assessment of the labor shortage in cybersecurity, so to speak?
Yeah, so a couple thoughts. One is on our side, just to your point, us having enough people, it's surely a challenge. I mean, we know that it's a relatively small pool of at least experienced cyber people out there with the right skill sets, and being competitive has always been a challenge. We know that the good, strong cyber folks out there always are going to have a lot of options, and being able to compete and being able to retain that talent continues to be a challenge. Again, I think we've taken some some great steps in making sure the talent that we do have, we've been able to retain. But I think the business is also taking IT more seriously, so to speak. Not that it ever didn't take it seriously, but I think with the move that was caused by the pandemic, right? This incredibly accelerated digital transformation that so many organizations went through in an effort to, in some cases, save the business.
Right. And it was forced too, right, John? You were forced to accelerate your digital transformation. You didn't have a choice.
Exactly right. Exactly right. But I think it resonated with the business of how important IT was in helping them enable the future of their business functions. And so in a lot of ways, I think it brought IT to the forefront as a business enabler and has really been now more closely embraced by the business.
That's
in
interesting.
terms of
That's interesting, John. And the reason I find it interesting is because much of the data has also showed many organizations when this digital transformation was forced, because it was literally, as you just said, 750,000 students go home, but be productive and do everything like you used to when you came in, right? I mean, that forced every organization to really think of their strategy, focus on what their business is, and it isn't cybersecurity. So I think it's interesting that you point out that it also may have heightened the overall awareness of security for the greater population of the organization.
Yeah, it sure did. I mean, obviously, it was move quickly and let's find a way to keep these core business functions rolling and us being able to continue to deliver that education. But it was surely do it quickly and do it securely.
Yeah.
I think at the forefront of our mind again was the need to protect we're entrusted with so many students, and once you start talking about alumni, now you're talking about millions and millions of former students as well that we need to continue to protect their data and protect the employees' data. So it was it really made us get better integrated, I think, as a entire business between the kind of normal business side, because if you're delivering education in the classroom, your big experience with IT was probably making sure the printer worked and, you could project something. But now all of a sudden, it was being able to deliver the entire experience online quickly in an engaging way. And it really made us collaborate more closely. I think in the end, as challenging and trying as this last year or year and a half will have been, it's really highlighted how well the business and the IT functions can work to deliver a better experience to the students. It's been a good experience for us, a challenging one for sure. But right. I think there's a lot of good to take away from it too.
Yeah, I completely agree, John. I've made it a practice in my life to just try to always find the good, the positive in every circumstance or situation. It's sometimes more challenging than others. And I agree with you. I think there's been some very positive results due to this whole pandemic thing. I'm curious to ask, this is a question I've asked other guests, and the way I set it up is memory. How much memory are you expecting us to have? And the context is, of course, if I gave you a 2-inch wide, 4-inch diameter rubber band, and you put your hands inside of it and you pulled it apart as far as you could, and then you let go, that rubber band would have nearly 100% memory, right? I mean, it would just go back to how it was. Do you think we'll go back? When I ask how much memory, are we going to go back to how it used to be? All students come into every one of the physical buildings. There's no more remote learning. I mean, are we going to have 100% memory, or is there going to be some hybrid, some balance?
Yeah, no, I think it's somewhere in between. I think for sure a lot of people are going to want to continue to have that experience of going to university and physically engaging with other students and teachers. And so I think, we're not going to stay in this 100% remote delivery model for eternity. So I do think a lot of that's going to come back. But we do know that the distance learning part of the business will be larger than it was before.
Mm-hmm.
But you're seeing a lot of changes in education anyways, right? I mean, you're seeing where 4-year on-campus degrees were always the way education was going to be delivered. We saw a move in a lot of cases to some remote learning options in different universities here in the United States and abroad. And then you're also seeing now, micro certifications, those types of things being more embraced as well in terms of more focused learning. So I think the whole learning industry is developing quite rapidly right now, getting away from, hey, I need $100,000 investment in a bachelor's degree.
Right.
And so I think the whole industry is changing a bit, but for sure the pandemic, I believe, will have a lasting impact in terms of people understanding that there are other ways to deliver quality education and students being more open to that as well.
I completely agree. And from experience, my son is now a junior at Belmont University. And so he, of course, like all students last year, he was sent home for spring break and never went back. And it's been an interesting time, but he is very keen and eager to get back onto campus. And there is an experience that you can't replicate remotely that you get when you're in person. But the flip side of that, John, I flew 270,000 miles in 2019. I didn't get on a plane, but only one time for work in 2020. And the number of events that I spoke at was nearly 2.5 times more remotely, of course, than when I had to travel all around. And so I wonder often is my management, is organizations like Checkpoint and others, are they going to just fall back into that throwing money at events, sending people all over the world to collect and gather together for events? Or are we going to be more scrutinizing of those spends and those activities? And it seems to me it would be the latter.
Yeah, you're right. Agreed. Yeah, I think you will see continued. I think people are dying for human contact right now. And that just the natural desire for humans to interact with each other and how much that supports morale and good feeling and and esprit de corps with groups. I think people are missing that, and I think some of that will come back. I do think though that some conferences might never be physical again.
Right.
Especially some of the smaller ones, and I think no doubt that for us we would continue to scrutinize travel even more closely. Yep. Like you, I used to get on a plane a lot and haven't much in the last year. And also for us, though, it's also from an education model, we are now reaching students who could never get to campus, right? Who had to take a 4-hour bus ride each day in one direction, to get education. And so as we're continuing to develop that model, and finding better ways to deliver affordable education to especially distant, remote, very difficult to reach students has been a real opportunity for us.
Yeah, that's a great point where the remote access, in fact, potentially opened it up for more that couldn't get there, right?
Correct. Yeah. It's been a neat journey.
I'm curious, when you look at cloud, and all the stuff that's been going on in the cloud, and it doesn't seem to be abating. I'm curious, are your universities offering more and more curricula that's cloud and cloud related, or are you pushing back to other information sources and sticking with more of the traditional education and degrees?
No, in fact, we're embracing the cloud quite a bit, and in fact, working even with some of the cloud companies out there to offer curriculum jointly created, whether it's with Google or AWS and some other entities. So again, I think that they are staying, the business side, the teaching side of these education institutions are realizing that there's just a huge opportunity here to deliver on time relevant education, especially in IT, which clearly means you have to include that cloud space. And so some of it is, in the past where perhaps a lot of that curriculum was internally developed and delivered, that's changed a bit. We understand that the dynamic pace of IT, especially with the acceleration of cloud and the pace that new developments are happening, is us being able to partner and really collaborate with some of the leaders in that space is critical for us to do that well. And so again, we've reached out and working specifically with some of the biggest cloud vendors out there right now to create curriculum and deliver that to students.
Yeah, I'm thinking to myself, this is not like math or English. I mean, and what I mean is the pace of change, the pace of new technologies and capabilities. I mean, a decade ago, did anybody know what Kubernetes was or use it? Right? I mean, when you look at some of the advancements, it's extraordinary. And it seems that it's only accelerating, which is exciting for all of us, but makes it much more challenging for institutions like yours, I suspect, to assemble and put together curricula that is changing so fast. Makes sense to align with those that are swimming in those lanes.
No, exactly right. If we tried to put together some type of static curriculum, that wasn't updated quickly and wasn't relevant to what is being experienced out there in the real world today, by the time we taught the class, it would be dated. Yeah. So and like you pointed out, I've talked to my staff frequently about this, that you as an IT professional and definitely as a cybersecurity professional, you have to keep pace with this change. What you may have learned, to your point, and I use this specific example frequently. Hey, accounting hasn't changed a lot. You got a column for this, and you got a column for that, and
exactly.
It's math. And not that it's not challenging, and not that we don't need extremely qualified people to do it. Yeah. But the pace of change is very different, and one of them, really requires you to be highly engaged with the community. Continue to find opportunities to increase your knowledge, because if you don't keep up with it, it'll leave you in the dust.
Yeah, no kidding.
You will be much less relevant very quickly.
Yeah, accounting, perfect example. I would suggest that probably some of the more challenging aspects of accounting are keeping up with the regulations and changings, laws and rules that you can and can't deduct, and all the other stuff. Less about the actual function of how you post accounts payable or receivable, right?
Exactly. And again, I'm sure I don't understand enough about accounting either to understand some of the intricacies of that arena. But we know that attackers surely are continuing to develop their techniques every day, and for us to keep pace with that's critical. Frequently, again, if I continue to use the accountant analogy, and again, no bad word for accountants, yeah. But is that, they don't have an adversary at the other end of a keyboard who's specifically trying to make their life harder. Right. And so it's not a constant chess match every day of who has the better techniques and who's able to manipulate things in a way to either defend more effectively or attack more effectively. So it's just a different career choice. But for sure, continuing to find the opportunities to develop and continue to gain in that skill set. If not, again, the skills that you gained a year or two ago surely aren't going to be as relevant today as they once were. Yeah,
that's right. Well, the one thing we know for sure is nothing's staying the same. It's fast moving and it's exciting, and it's I know myself personally, I feel so fortunate to have gotten into this industry overall. And I suspect, with your tenure, you've got to have similar feelings. It's exciting to be in this space that's become so monumentally important, critical to our daily lives. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I wouldn't change it. Like you said, we've all had these kind of interesting career paths. I didn't think, sitting on a helicopter for a number of years or being a platoon sergeant in the Army, surely I didn't see this career path for me at that moment, but it's surely been incredibly exciting. There's just an amazing amount of opportunity within it. There's very specialized functions within cybersecurity or within the cloud space that is so unique to different areas.
Yep.
It's not this just one skill set.
Right. It's gotten so huge.
Exactly. Whether you're in cyber on the attack side or the defense side or the governance side or the risk side and privacy side, there's so many specialized skill sets that need to continue to be developed. And for sure, it is critical to protect our businesses and protect our nation today.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, John, this has been an outstanding conversation. I really, really appreciate you taking time with me. I know you're a busy guy. I really just appreciate your insights, your views, and I hope I can get you to come back on the program again sometime.
I'd love it, Grant. Thanks for your time today. I appreciate it.
John, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we got another one in the books. This was a different one, but I think really very interesting. Some good food for thought about how this whole pandemic and the cloud is influencing university and how we're seeing it change. So again, John, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Grant.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate you being here. We got so many exciting executives and special guests on the docket. I hope you'll subscribe, share with your friends, and thank you very much for being here. We'll look forward to having you on the next Talking Cloud.